What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Season 7 off-season for the St. Thomas Tommies Dynasty. This is your boy John J Gaming on the mic, and today, got a lot to do, man, going through what went down this season, as well as the stats for our guys, and of course, the off-season. Can't forget about the off-season either. So first, we'll go into the season stats and just taking a look at the NCAA leaders. Antoine Johnson actually was third in the NCAA in passing. We got the school record. Honestly, if we didn't pull him out early in the fourth quarter, he probably would have gotten it. But, alas, it is what it is at the end of the day. Tyler Graham, though, despite being hurt for the final, 2 to 3 games, actually the last 3 games of the season, still leads the NCAA in tackles. Billy Mitchell was right behind him with 68, and Zaire Hill did finish with 55 tackles, which was good for 4th in the NCAA. Then in sacks, Antoine Black, he did slow down significantly, but still 11 sacks is really impressive for a true freshman. He had 11 on the season. And then interceptions, didn't really do nothing special with interceptions. Kevin Carter did lead the team with 3, though. Now we will go ahead and dig deeper into, the season stats. Starting with Antoine Johnson, and this guy was definitely a gunslinger. 27 touchdowns, which did tie the school record for most touchdown passes in the season, but also threw 16 picks, which is a little alarming. But hey, he did what he had to do to win us games. Can't really complain about that. Noah Brooks did come in sparingly at times, and when he did, he was pretty impressive. 11 for 16, 119 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Currently sitting at 70 overall. I know Willie Hood's going to come in. He's around 75. But, depending on how training results go, he definitely has the opportunity to compete for a starting job next season. Because, this past year, when he first came in as a freshman redshirt, it wasn't very good. Definitely was not ready for it. But, this season, when he did come in, was a lot better. Almost 75% completion percentage, not a single pick, and 2 touchdown passes, one of which being in the bowl game. So, definitely gives me something to think about going into season 8 for sure. For running game, going to this running game, Lucas Coley led the squad outright with over 1,200 yards on the ground. Also had 12 touchdowns, which is really cool to see. Antoine Johnson was not too far behind him with 750 and 7 touchdowns. Kajaye Boyd was quite a difference maker coming off the bench. He had 300 yards rushing and had 9 rushing touchdowns. Dude was also a threat in the kicking game. I'll have to let you know about that later. Jamie Smith, Ryan Sanders, and Eli Shaligan, who will be transferring later in this episode for sure. He still decided to transfer. He got into the end zone too. But receiving core, this receiving core was anchored by Isaiah Thomas, who had a beastly season. 75 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving, and 9 touchdown passes. Not to be outdone, Alex Garcia was a great compliment. Coming back to his freshman form, he had, not as many catches and yards, but had twice as many touchdowns. He had 543 yards, 7 scores. Rashad Bird was a pretty solid slot guy for us as well. Almost 600 yards receiving and a couple scores himself. Lucas Coley had almost 200 yards and 4 touchdowns. Kajaye Boyd, again, was also a backup receiver and, got some looks when he was in there. 390 yards, 2 touchdowns. You love to see it. Adrian Allen, a solid tight end for us. He got into the end zone as well. Almost the exact same number of receiving yards. Just a very consistent threat for us, at certain times of the game. And then Tyreek Miller and Jake Braun both experienced their first seasons on the field. They were both able to contribute with 2 touchdowns through the air. Taking a look at blocking real quick, because the Hog Mollies don't get as much attention as they probably should. Jarrell Bullock actually led the team with 9 pancakes over the course of the season, but nobody else had more than 5. However, we did have some sacks given up, 10 sacks in total, which is not bad. But most of them come from Devin Green, and then the other 3 come from Travis Kendrick. But to be fair, we did scramble to the right a bunch of times, and that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. It is what it is. Looking over the defense, actually, that only accounted for solo tackles. Billy Mitchell actually had more total tackles. He had 73, but Tyler Graham was right behind him with 72, despite, again, only playing 11 games total this season. It sucks that he had to break his collarbone at the end of his senior year, but, he still had a really good year regardless. Zaire Hill and Joe Henry both had 50-plus tackles each. We also did a really good job of getting to this quarterback this season. We were led by the tandem of Antoine Black and Buster Porter, who I imagine will get huge upgrades in the season via the regular training results as well as the underachiever bonus that I give to guys that are under, 80 overall, and, they still get named to the all-conference all-American teams. Brian Anderson was also able to get in there with 5 sacks himself. You love to see it. Zach Bones and Joe Henry had 3. Odom and Justin Hill had multiple sacks. And then, DJ Watson, Brett Smart, Dale Garrison each got a sack as well. We actually did have a pretty unique spread for interceptions. The only people with multiple interceptions was Kevin Carter and Joe Henry, but there was a bunch of different guys that got their hands on the ball, picking this ball off at any given point throughout the season. And then not only that, but we got some forced fumbles too. We had 5 different guys forced fumbles, in which many of those were covered, too notably by Buster Porter, the only person with multiple fumble recoveries. And then Billy Mitchell forced a safety, and Dale Garrison got a defensive touchdown for this squad. Moving on over to the bowl results zone, just scrolling down to see what transpired in the 7th edition of bowl season within the St. Thomas Dynasty. And, Oregon pulls the upset on San Diego State. They still are ranked at the top 25 though, but lost to Oregon 38-26. We did what we need to do, obviously. We improved to 12-2, dismantling the Terrapins, and we move up to number 12 in the final polls. That's our best finish ever in this dynasty to date, so I'm really excited about that. Utah beats UCF 30-19 in the Holiday Bowl, winning their 9th game of the season. Pittsburgh defeats BYU in the Russell Athletic Bowl 24-20. Okay. Notre Dame beats Ohio State in the Meineken Carr Care Bowl 27-7. Of course, this would not happen in real life. Speaking from a biased Ohio State fan, of course. Cincinnati defeats Colorado in the Fight Hunger Bowl, and it's a little disrespectful that Cincinnati ended up in a bowl game like this, given that they were ranked in the top 10. You would think they would have made it to a BCS Bowl, but guess it wasn't in the cards for them this season. USC defeats Oklahoma State in the Alamo Bowl by a score of 6 points. South Carolina beats Clemson in the Chick-fil-A Bowl 45-22. A nice season for the Gamecocks. Iowa defeats USF of the Bulls of Southern Florida 38-10 in that Heart of Dallas Bowl, which climbs Iowa into the top 25 final polls. Florida defeats Indiana in the Gator Bowl, basically a home game for Florida. Alabama destroys the Wisconsin Badgers 52-21. Texas A&M beats Nebraska 42-9 in the Outback Bowl. Definitely not a good showing between these two games for the Big Ten. Air Force losing to Michigan in the Rose Bowl 34-21. Penn State beating Arkansas in the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl 49-32. So actually a bunch of Big Ten teams going to very important bowl games. So I guess they didn't have as bad of a bowl season as I thought they did. UNLV actually defeats the Hurricanes 41-24. If it wasn't for their regular season loss, UNLV probably would have easily been in the championship game, and who knows from there. Definitely a really good season for the Rebels either way. Houston defeating LSU in the Orange Bowl 30-28, a very close game. Oklahoma losing in the Cotton Bowl to Tennessee 24-19. That's a pretty embarrassing way to lose. And then finally in the BCS National Championship game, the Seminoles from Florida State defeat the Texas Longhorns 41-35. Doing it in overtime as well. What a way to finish the season if you're a Seminoles fan. Although I'm sure the Texas Longhorns will be in a position again next year to compete for that national championship, just like we hope to compete for a national championship next year as well. Finally, before moving into the remainder of this offseason, checking out the All-Americans for Season 7. Antoine Black and Buster Porter both made the All-American team as first-team players their freshman year, so that's extremely impressive to see. Although they're also going to be joined by Joe Henry. He's a first-teamer You love to see that. And then Pat Hampton does as well. He's a first-team All-American. I'm actually extremely surprised. And of course, Kajaye Boyd, arguably the most electric college football player, win the 2020 Best Returner Award. And why not? This man had 7 touchdowns in the kick return game. Over 2,000 total kick return yards as well. Such an insane season from a great player. Wish him the best of luck. It sucks that he's going to graduate. Over on the second team, seeing if there was any other All-Americans, joining the squad. And right now, I don't see any. But there's Jared Odom making that second team All-American squad. So is Billy Mitchell. So if you're keeping track at home, that's most of our secondary graduating, by the way, that was on an All-American team. We're going to have a difficult time replacing their production in general. How you doing, Coach? I'm the athletic director at Stanford University, and we've just loved what you have been doing, at St. Thomas. How you really brought these guys from the ground, and we want to offer you the opportunity to coach the Stanford football team to really take us to those high places since Andrew Luck did graduate from our institution. How you feel, Coach? You want to come join Stanford? Wow. I am really flattered by that opportunity, but I feel like my work is definitely not finished here at St. Thomas. I want to do something that's never been done. I want to take these guys to a national championship, so I appreciate your offer, but I am going to decline. I do wish you guys the best of luck, though. Moving on to the coaching changes for this upcoming year, just to see what's happening around the MAC. Joe Moorhead becomes the new head coach of Toledo. Both of our coordinators do decide to stay. I thought Tony Franklin might leave because he does have B+ prestige. He's definitely capable of becoming a head coach someday, but for now, did decide to, stick around. Northern Illinois is now led by Aaron Keene after Ed Orgeron retired, so that's interesting to see. First head coaching job as well. Ryan Day goes from Toledo to Ball State in a very odd move. Just the fact that he's in the MAC anyways, but, it's whatever. Staying in the MAC for this season, just under the Cardinals instead. Around until, at least for another season, which is nice. That would make him the first player ever to be drafted out of St. Thomas, if that holds up. Other notable players that are leaving is Kajaye Boyd, All-American and has a 2020 Best Returner Award. Gonna definitely miss the speed and athleticism he has. Jared Odom, Tyler Graham are both leading, 2 very important leaders on this defense. Not to mention Billy Mitchell and Joe Henry are also leaving as well. So we're gonna have to replace our entire secondary, all of whom are graduating this season. Other players like Ryan Sanders, who stuck around through the hard times. Antoine Johnson's gonna leave. It's just really sad to see all these seniors go, and I'm hoping for the best. If Zaire Hill does get drafted to the NFL, and he does, Zaire Hill, 6th round pick, becomes the very first player out of St. Thomas in this dynasty to get drafted into the NFL. Huge props to him, and hopefully he has a long and successful NFL career ahead of him. We also didn't have any transfers, but we are actually scratched that. While we didn't have anyone else transfer away from the team, we do go to Eli Shaligan's decision, as we're about to find out where he's going to go to school at. So we find out that Eli Shaligan is going to the University of Minnesota, so we're definitely going to have to make sure we get them on the schedule for Season 8. In the meantime, we actually don't have any transfer requests, which is kind of surprising given how great of a season that we had. But I guess that gives more room for our homegrown talent if we can bring them in. Next up, we now move on to recruiting season. Got some important decisions to make. We do have some extra points to work with, up to 13,000 points, although we still need a cornerback, to meet our minimum. So I don't know how I'm going to go about this necessarily. There's a lot of good players that I really want to get onto the squad. So I'll come back to you when I finally figure that out. Alright, so I think I figured it out and, put a little bit of emphasis on making sure our needs are covered. So Trey Griffin, I know he's not the most talented player on the face of the earth. I'm going to put 2,000 points into him for now. And then, to tackle, the better players on this roster, because Mike Simmons, the best overall player that's still on our board, an absolute gem, by the way. We're going to put 4,400 into him and hope for the best. Hopefully that's enough to convince him to come to us instead of Kansas State. We also did put 3K into Clayton Ratliff because he is a talented player. I'm worried other people may, see the talent that he brings to the table as a gem and, try to swoop in and take him at the last second. But I think 3,000 should do the trick. Everett Stewart, also putting 2K into him to make sure that we add another quality wide receiver to this recruiting class as well. And then Aaron Jackson, I'm going to put 1,600 into him. Well, I'm pretty sure the only school that's going after him right now. And, it should do the trick. See, I'm hoping that we get all 5 of these guys, and then some of the people that, just can't put any points into. Hopefully they still decide to go ahead and, sign with the Tommies regardless, though. Only thing left to do is to find out what's gonna happen over in Senior Day. So let's see what happens. So here is the final results, and we get most of the guys that we actually wanted. Mike Simmons, Everett Stewart, Aaron Jackson, and Trey Griffin all signed with the squad. However, Clayton Ratliff decides to go to Northwestern. I don't know how the heck that happened, but I'm gonna have to dig into this signing day to figure out what happened there. And then it looks like we signed 7, but I'm only showing 4. So I'm wondering if, we ended up signing a few walk-ons, at least 2 3-star walk-ons, and then maybe like a 2 or 1-star walk-on as well. Gonna have to check that out as well. So this is our final recruiting board, man. Mike Simmons joins the squad, does commit to the team, so I'm really stoked about that. Northwestern jumps above St. Thomas by a country mile, over 4,000. I don't know what the heck happened, how we ended up losing this guy, but unfortunately he won't be joining the team, so I'm just gonna go ahead and remove him. Let's see here. Everett Stewart also joins as well. Not surprised about that. Aaron Jackson does opt to sign with the Tommies, so that at least works out in our favor. Cedric Fraser joins the Hawaii Warriors, which not at all surprised about since we didn't put any points into him. Chase Tolbert decides not to sign anywhere. Thought he might go ahead and sign with us. That was simply not the case, though. Trey Griffin, though, joins the team, so that covers our quarterback need. No walk-ons coming over here. Damian Sanders opts to play for Ohio State, the Canada native. Then Willie Williams isn't going to play anywhere, so that's interesting as well, I suppose. He's going to be gone as well. So it looks like this is going to be our final recruiting class, and you guys know how I do it here on this channel for custom recruits. If there's somebody that you do want to replace, let me know down in the comments and I will make it happen. I will have a template pinned in, under the comment section, as well as in the description as well. So make sure you check that out and then use that to, fill out which custom recruit you want, when you become a St. Thomas Tommy here in this dynasty. So with all the recruits accounted for, we are a 4-star school, so we can now go in after 4-star prospects, which, that's going to help our team go so much better. As, 47th is our best recruiting class that we put together. We're right by Miami of the Red Hawks, who, was slightly ahead of us, but they're able to go after 4 and 5 stars. That probably won't happen after this year. A solid recruiting class, our best recruiting class yet in this entire dynasty, in my opinion. Alright, so here we are at position changes once we went for the recording board. Don't worry about Eli Shaligan being on here, by the way. He will be removed from the roster and put on Minnesota. And we'll also make sure that he's really good as well, so that he's starting whenever we do decide to play him. All that being said, though, we got to start with the athletes and, seeing what kind of, stuff he has. Looks like he's a fullback, maybe? Although, it looks like he's a really good center, sitting at 70 overall if we send him over there. So, take a look at our offensive line real quick. It looks like we don't have anybody at left tackle, so we might have to go ahead, and put him over at left tackle just so that we can have somebody over there to make sure that that need is taken care of. So at left tackle we will have Lee Hagan, and he'll likely be starting there as a true freshman, so that'll be interesting to see. What we're also going to do is go ahead and opt into moving one of these left outside linebackers over to the middle linebacker position. We do decide to still run the 3-4 just because we were doing such a great job finish things off over there. And, I'm just looking at, our board, and, I'm thinking there's more of a chance that, Stan Doyle, if we move him over to outside linebacker, he'll make more of an impact over there. So we'll go ahead and move Stan Doyle over there, since we have like an extra body over there. As, looking around, Lance Cooper. Oh, that's actually one of our walk-ons. Okay. Lance Cooper, welcome to the squad. Definitely love to see that. Can't really complain. But Sean Doyle, he's going to be moving over to that middle linebacker position. With the position changes now being taken care of, though, let's go ahead and go into one of my favorite parts of this offseason, the good old training results. So here are what the training results transpired for us. Lucas Coley is a 92 overall, though he won't be the only really good player on this team. Kevin Carter is going to be an 85. Isaiah Thomas is an 82. Jamie Smith's an 80 overall. That's not too shabby for him either. Taking a look at the rest of positions, Noah Brooks is up to that 75 overall. So it looks like there is going to be a QB battle between Noah Brooks and incoming freshman Willie Hood. We're going to have to definitely sort this out. May need to even use a couple of games to decide who's going to start for us at that quarterback position. Lucas Coley, already talked about him. He's definitely beast mode. Eli Shaligan won't be around anymore, but Mike Haynes looks like he could bring something different to the table, though. 72 overall is not too shabby. Jamie Smith is now sitting at 80 overall. You love to see it. Isaiah Thomas is an 82, and then Alex Garcia sits at 78 overall. Although it gets really interesting at that third wide receiver. Looks like it's a toss-up between Damian Hudson III, who transferred from Georgia State, and Tariq Miller, who played sparingly and was, somewhat solid. Tristan Singleton's a 70 overall as well. And then we still have a few guys that, are still in the 60s. Adrian Allen, of course, is going to be your starting tight end. And then behind them is Sean Doyle and DeMarcus Hurd II. Actually, although it's really close between the two. Left guard, Chance Adiyemi Anomi moves up to 71. Center, Yaldwin Smith is now up to a 67. Travis Kendrick, who was a true freshman starter, is up to a 69 overall. Nice. At right tackle, Adam Jackson and Chris Bean make some strides. Adam Jackson being close to 70 overall, whereas Chris Bean is up to that 63. Antoine Black moves up to a 72, although I imagine with the underachiever bonus that I'll probably get, he'll be higher than that for sure, whereas Chris Hill's a 66. Brian Anderson both sits at 65 in par with Buster Porter, so that'll be really interesting, although Buster Porter's got to get the nod. There's no reason for him to not get it, to be honest. At defensive tackle, DJ Watson moves up to a 75, with Mitchell McLaughlin waiting in the wings, ready to take over. After he does inevitably graduate, James Sapp and Willie Robinson and Ashley Brock as well aren't too far behind Mitchell McLaughlin. So, the future at defensive tackle looks pretty bright, actually. Left outside linebacker, Dale Garrison moves up to a 74 overall. Looking forward to having him probably start for us. Middle linebacker, Jim Smith, a true sophomore, who played very sparingly, had one singular tackle, but looks like he'll see significantly more playing time. At the right outside, Zach Bones sits at a 74, whereas Matt Wade's a 70. Tremaine Henderson moves up to a 65 overall himself. At corner, not a lot of people at corner. We'll definitely need to bring some more of those in over the next couple of seasons. Kevin Carter's an 85, but behind him it gets, pretty questionable, to be honest. Free safety, Corey Johnson's a 76 overall. Probably will be the new starter at the free safety position. And then it's strong safety, it's Jared Scott, although I doubt he actually starts. Pat Hampson's a 76, and then Jamaro Lewis is at a 77 overall. So now here we are cutting some players, man. And, usually at this time, I usually like to cut the worst players on our squad. So, Darius Landry, I'm sorry, buddy. You're going to have to go. Same thing with you, Victor Green. You just aren't going to necessarily cut it either. Heath. was a bust and, just doesn't show the potential that we really need right now. You're going to get the boot. And then, CJ Waller, we're going to cut him as well. And then this is where it gets interesting. It's between Nick Watson, Jared Scott, so we probably shouldn't cut either of these guys. And then it's between Larry Frederick and Darren Murphy. Just kind of looking around, see what the left outside spot's looking like. We only have 3 guys there, so I don't really want to cut from there necessarily. But at quarterback, we have 5 quarterbacks on this squad right now, man. And I think that Larry Frederick is gonna get cut. We don't need 5 quarterbacks right now, especially if there's no chance that he's ever gonna play at any singular point. So yeah, I'm sorry, buddy, you're gonna have to get cut. So yeah, man, this is what our final roster is gonna look like, and I really love the talent that I'm seeing on this squad. Now it's time to find out whether we're gonna stay in the MAC conference or move up to the American. So now we move on to conference realignments, and I really had to sit down and think about this for a couple of days. I asked you guys as well, and between YouTube, I've heard a couple different, actually 3 different suggestions. We can either move to the American, I heard that in the Discord. We could move to the Pac-12. I did hear the Pac-12 as well. And then finally, I also saw that we could move to the SEC conference as well. Although it seems either way, it was consensus that we need to move to the MAC. So what I decided to do is I'm gonna go ahead and move these guys to the American Conference. The reason why I chose the American Conference was just because we had a better fit overall. We have teams like a Cincinnati that we are somewhat closer to out of all the other schools. The SEC, we're way too far north, and the Pac-12, it's still really far. At least we're kind of in the same time zone with some of these squads. So yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. Gonna move to the American Conference, and then Navy, I'm gonna go ahead and move down to the MAC. They didn't do very well this season, and yeah, I think that's what I'm gonna do. We will make an appearance in the American Conference, so I'm definitely extremely stoked for that. So this is what I decided to do with the conference schedule. We did go ahead and remove that Troy game. We just weren't really feeling it, to be honest. We will play Buffalo week 1, a former MAC conference mate that we had to deal with. We're now non-conference. Interesting thing is, in the 3 years we were in the MAC, we never played them, but then outside of the MAC, this will be our 3rd time going at it. Hopefully we win it this time around. We'll also play Minnesota on the road. We'll take on Eli Shaligan's team. He's going to be starting at tailback for them most likely. So we should be a really interesting, probably the most interesting matchup for our non-conference play. And then we'll get our first taste of the American Conference. UCF, Temple, UConn is still somehow in this conference. Yeah, Southern Florida, SMU, Tulsa, number 11 Houston. And we get them at home. That's going to be a really exciting matchup. And then finish up with road games against Memphis, Old Dominion. And then one more home game against Tulane before hopefully at least we have some form of pro season play waiting for us on the other side. Checking on over to the red shirts that we're going to have for this season. And it's all going to be on the offensive side of the ball. Ross Green and Garnet Horner are both going to get red shirt. They're probably not going to see the field anyways. But, Ross Green is a guy that can contribute as soon as next season. So want to make sure he has as much eligibility as possible when he does step up to the plate for us. At wide receiver, we have such an influx of wide receiver that I am going to redshirt a few guys that won't see the field much anyways. Everett Stewart's going to get a red shirt. Rashad Bird, who's a senior, he's going to get red shirt as well. He's just so deep down the depth chart, and he also has 10 drop passes for us this season. So we're going to redshirt him as well. And then Dorian Steffens, we're also going to redshirt on this squad. Just isn't a lot of room right now. So just going to redshirt these guys since we don't really need them for this season, if I'm being honest. And then finally, this was something that I really had to think about who I'm going to start at quarterback, Noah Brooks or Willie Hood. You know, Willie Hood is a guy that does, has more raw talent, but his awareness is down to 56. So what that tells me is that this man does not have the most, he doesn't really have a grasp of our playbook. Meanwhile, Noah Brooks, he does have a way better grasp of what we're trying to do here at St. Thomas. And at the end of the day, this is Lucas Coley's team. So, the vocal point, is going to be our running back. It's not really going to be our quarterback. And I want somebody that's not going to make as many mistakes at our quarterback position. So not only am I going to let Noah Brooks start for us, but I am going to go ahead and redshirt Willie Hood, even though I know that sounds like a really, blasphemous decision at the service. I'm pretty sure we're like 1-2 years away from competing for a national championship. Season 10 is really what I'm targeting, to be honest. And by then, Willie Hood will be ready to take that starting quarterback job. And that's when we're really going to need him for that national championship push. He will be more than ready for that opportunity. So next episode, like I said, I will go, after my recruiting board to show you guys who I'm going to go after in the first stages of Season 8 now that we're finally here, as well as take a look at how we're looking in the preseason polls, conference outlook, preseason All-Americans, and of course all of those guys that you want as custom recruits, which you just have to follow the template and you will be a custom recruit for Season 8, plus those that did get an underachiever bonus going into Season 8 because they overachieved expectations based on what their, overall was for Season 7. But until then, man, that is all I have for today. Make sure you smash that like button as well as hit subscribe if you happen to be new. This is John J. Gaming on the mic, hoping you all have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.